Hello friends, begs his teammates to pick Dry Ranger here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of Dota Alchemy, in which we're going to be discussing what is going to be broken, what is going to be overpowered in Dota patch 7.22. So my criteria for this is basically how is the meta going to shift away from the stuff that's currently overpowered and what has been getting buffed over and over and over and over again, but still not getting picked up, because that is just the trend that the Ice Frog seems to follow. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I think probably the most obvious thing that is likely to get changed is the fact that you can essentially cheese every single lane and go 50-50 regardless of the matchup, which means there are a lot of heroes that are available to us that otherwise probably wouldn't be available because of counter picks. So in the off lane, you can pull the creep wave, you can drag the creep wave to your tier 2, you can cut the creeps at the tier 3, you can drag it to neutral camps. The safe lane, you have both the pulls, which it's very easy to de-ward, and it's very hard to block both of those camps because you need 2 wards, and once again, you can de-ward it. The mid lane, you push out the wave, and then you go jungle, get runes, or you go gank. So essentially, any lane you can 50-50 by just doing these kind of cheesy methods, and I think that's very likely to get changed. So as a result, I believe that heroes that are good at playing lanes from level 1, heroes that can just decimate in an even matchup where you're just laning, I think those heroes are going to be great. But of course, there are a lot of heroes that are currently strong that are already good at that, but they're going to get nerfed. So we'll ignore those for now and talk about some of the ones that are not currently picked, some of the heroes that are not currently picked. Weaver is at the top of my list, one of the top heroes. So Geminate attack was just buffed and now does this extra attack damage. He's been buffed in other ways. He's great at laning. He's very annoying to deal with, especially at level 1 for most heroes, because you need a sentry in the lane, and even if you have a sentry, the Sakuchi makes you hasted, so it's a problem. It does a lot of damage. And then also, similar to Weaver, a hero that can just decimate a lane and do a lot of damage from level 1 is Bristleback. This hero has been receiving buffs for patches and patches and patches. I actually think the hero is pretty good right now. People just haven't figured it out. And if we ever get into a game state where people are just sitting in lanes and fighting, this hero is the absolute best at that. He is almost impossible to deal with in a regular laning scenario unless he's completely hard countered. And if he's buffed, it's going to be hard to counter him. Enchantress. This is one of my favorite heroes, and another hero who's great at just sitting in a lane and completely dumpstering somebody. You need specific hard counters to this hero, or you cannot function. You cannot lane against her if you're not cheesing the lane. These hard counters are very strong right now. Batrider, Ursa are 2 notable ones, very likely to get nerfed. And this hero, I think as a 4 right now, she's actually underrated and quite strong. So I believe that this hero will be one of the top heroes in the next patch in the offlane and as a 4 or 5 role. And then last but not least, Skywrath Mage. This is one of my favorite heroes. The problem with this hero right now is that you can cheese any lane and just do okay in it. And the way this hero functions is he snowballs from decimating a lane with his absolute beastly laning presence by spamming out that Arcane Bolt. But if you can cheese any lane, and he just falls off anyway after the laning stage, if he doesn't decimate a lane, then that means basically against good players, he falls off in every game. So if laning is static, and Skywrath Mage is good in the late game, which he is already, and he's probably going to get buffed, I think this hero is going to definitely come into the meta in the next patch. Next, I want to talk about some items that I think are going to be very strong in the next patch. So your first thought, as a bit of a side note, is you might be thinking, Holy Locket. Of course, something like that is going to be broken because it is so trash, and the Frog just added it into the game as this new item with a new function. What are the chances that the guy's just like, it's fine that this brand new item that I was experimenting with is trash? Not likely to happen, right? I do agree that I think it's going to get buffed. However, with that being said, I see this item as being in the same place as where Rod of Atos was at one point, where it was really bad. Nobody was picking it up because the primary function of it was awful, and the frog, instead of changing the primary function, because he's not going to do that when he adds a new item to the game, he's not going to completely rework it. That's the same thing as just deleting an item and then making a new one. He slightly changes it, slightly changes it, slightly changes it, until it gets to the point where it's a brand new item, and then it's finally good. It's kind of like that analogy where if you take a boat and you constantly replace parts on it to the point where no single part on the boat is the same as what it was before, is that a brand new boat? It's the same thing. And I think Holy Locket is going to have to go through that kind of transition of many patches before it's good. However, items that don't need that transition because they've already gone through them, Meteor Hammer. This is my top pick for broken item in the next patch. This increased Meteor Hammer radius from 300 to 315 means that you can Meteor Hammer creep waves and towers from out of vision of them, from out of range of towers. It means that you can very easily get the whole creep wave, including the ranged creep. The health regen and mana regen was increased. The Meteor Hammer cooldown was reduced to 28, which means you can use it on every single creep wave, which makes it one of the best pushing and farming items in the game. This item has basically been getting buffed since it was added to Dota, and I personally think that it's already extremely good. And because people really aren't picking it up anyway, other than on these few niche heroes, it's probably going to get buffed, and it's going to be broken. I predict this item is going to be in every single game, maybe on 2 to 3 heroes. Second item that I think is going to be great is Eon Disc. So my argument with this item is that there are a lot of games where I'm playing a hero that's important to survive in a fight, and my thought process is like, okay, do I get a Crimson Guard or a Vanguard to survive physical damage? Do I get a Pipe to survive magical damage? In some games, it just kind of feels like you need everything. You just need to survive everything. And that's where an Eon Disc would be very convenient. However, a lot of people aren't really picking up this item. It's probably a little bit underrated, but with that being said, it has been buffed in the past few patches. I think that if they tinker with this combo breaker status resistance, which has been increased significantly to the point where they make it last a little bit longer or something along those lines, this is going to be really good because this is a really cheap item and the components to it are great. And already, like I said, it feels like there are games where you want to go for it. Last but not least, Lincoln Sphere. The reason that I think that this item is going to be good is because it has been good for a very long time, and only recently has it become garbage because the stats aren't that great. A lot of the stats have been removed from it, and also most heroes that want to build into this would just rather build into a Lotus Orb, which provides way better stats, especially with the armor, and it's basically just a feeling. I feel like Lincoln Sphere has been strong for so long, and it's kind of unprecedented to have it be this garbage to the point where, okay, it's been long enough, it's probably going to be strong again. So the final prediction that I want to make in terms of what I think is going to be overpowered in the next patch is jungling. So there are a few reasons that I say this, and it's not for memes. It's basically because I think that, number one, a lot of the heroes that would reasonably jungle and still be effective in a game are not picked right now and likely to get buffed. Enchantress, Shen, those are good examples. I don't want to encourage a Legion Commander, so I'm not going to say Legion Commander. Bloodseeker kind of sucks. I have seen people run that as a support, and it seems kind of like it feels okay. And usually when things are bad but still feel kind of okay, that means that when somebody does it in a patch where the jungle is actually good, it's going to be completely broken. And with that being said, the jungle has been getting buffed in terms of the gold that it gives you and the experience that it gives you, and lane creeps have been getting nerfed, other than ranged creeps. But melee creeps have been getting nerfed. So I think if that trend continues, jungle is going to be good. And then a kind of final note here is that because I think that in the next patch, it's very likely that lanes are going to be these matchup-based, non-cheese sort of style lanes where you're just duking it out on the lane creeps, on the lane equilibrium. Essentially, matchups are going to matter a lot. Certain lanes are going to be destined to lose. Certain lanes are going to be destined to win. And having a jungler to come out with this huge power spike like an Enigma with the Helm Dome is an X factor in the game that you can essentially just have this hero where it's like, okay, we're going to lose this lane, we're going to lose this lane, but we have this power spike to play off of and potentially run and gank that lane, or potentially go to the strong lane and take the tower and then give that space to the person that lost the lane. So that's it for this video. I'm probably completely wrong about everything because trying to predict what Ice Frog does is like trying to catch a unicorn with your nipples. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. But, you know, I wanted to predict. I think that these things are probably going to get changed. Most likely not in the way that I suggested because Ice Frog always completely takes the game and flips it on his head, which is what keeps it interesting. So if you have any ideas for what you think that Ice Frog is going to change about the game, please leave that in the comments below. I'd love to hear your theories. Anyway, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it, and I hope to see you in another video.